This episode of Around the Layout is brought to you by Spring Creek Model Trains. Family owned for nearly 25 years, Spring Creek is your destination for model trains. Check out springcreekmodeltrains.com for a wide variety of offerings from today's top manufacturers and exclusive products found nowhere else. Whether in Deschler, Nebraska, or at a train show near you, stop in and say wow. To see where they'll be next, visit their website at springcreekmodeltrains.com. If you're looking to bring more realism to your layout industries, look no further than tullymodels.com, the home of Southern Tier Grain Modeler Supply and Steel Mill Modeler Supply. With models to fit steam, transition, and diesel eras, Kevin Tully has you covered with all of the components you'll need to take your grain and steel mills to the next level. Check out the entire catalog at tullymodels.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Around the Layout, where model railroaders come to tell their story. My name is Ray Arnott, so glad you could join us. Joining me tonight, coming to us from Springdale, Arkansas, Joey Giunto. Joey, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ray. It's a pleasure to be here with you, man. It's awesome.
Well, great to have you here, Joey. One was cool. I've been talking about it for a while, and I guess it's just because I had such a great time and still trying to figure out how I'm going to get back there again next year. But you were one of the folks I was able to put a face to a name to at the St. Louis RPM. I met you and your girlfriend, Amy, at the show. So it was great to see you both. And then you gave me this really nice gift as well. You gave me a Pennsylvania 50-foot boxcar that I assume that you have weathered because it's got some good weathering on it. And, so yeah, it was a really cool gift. I appreciate that. I still have it here, and eventually I'm going to put a shelf up in the studio here where I can display things of the sort. But do appreciate that, and it was great to see you at the St. Louis RPM. And I think you're a regular visitor out to that St. Louis area, right?
I'm becoming one, definitely. A lot of friends out there. You know, we've been working with Ken Patterson with his show What's Neat This Week with Model Railroad Hobbyist magazine. Been really good friends with James Regier, Mike Buddy, Ken, Joshua, just the whole clan. And eventually, you know, I can see it being lifelong friends. And Daniel Coombs has been a great help with me and helping my friend Darius with his passing, with getting all of his locomotives just upgraded, helping me out in that way. And I call him my chief mechanical officer because he does it in real life. And he does it for my model railroad as well. And so it's been a great blessing having all those folks out there. And then, like you say, the word camaraderie, man, that's the way it is. And it's just a family reunion is the way I see it every time we come to visit and every time we go out to see each other at train shows and all these major events.
I think that's really the lasting impact of the St. Louis RPM was the camaraderie. Just how many really great folks I got to meet in person. Folks that I had maybe been talked to beforehand, and then folks that I even knew after to be able to meet in person face to face. It was the first time I saw Tony Cook face to face. I mean, him and I had been working together for over a year, but I mean, the world of virtual here, or even what we're doing tonight to record the podcast, you know, but then being able to be face to face and interact and shake hands and tell stories and the whole nine yards. It was just an absolute blast. And you were all included in that. Absolutely.
You know, I've been to my very first NMRA convention in 2023. And actually, we missed each other that day because I was doing a weathering workshop. And that for me was a family reunion. A lot of the folks out there I've known for 10 years, but virtually, we never saw each other in person. Folks like Speed Muller, Gordy Robinson, our president, and of course, Marty Jenkins and Michelle Kempema. And Steve and Cynthia Priest. I mean, all the folks that I grew up looking in all these magazines with Dad, and then further along with my friend Darius, who we'll discuss today, you know, and then meeting everybody in person. I mean, all these folks helped me get to where I am today, and can't do it by yourself. And that's just the beauty of the friendship and family we have in this community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, it was great seeing you out there meeting face to face. And we've been talking about, you told me your story. I got a chance to hear it, and boy, I think it's just a really fascinating one. So I want to get into it. But before we get into the crux of the story, I want to learn a little bit more about you and your start in model railroading. What are your earliest memories of model railroading?
Oh, we're going to go back to ancient history in the
Yeah.
1990s.
Yeah, no, don't say the 1990s are ancient history. You're going to make me feel a little older and whatnot. But yeah, let's go back and let's try to remember a little bit.
So I know my grandfather, he collected Lionel trains, and I still have his collection. Actually, I have a box right next to me, has this old transformer, and it still says Madison Hardware from New York City. And if folks know who I am and don't know me, I was born and raised in Staten Island, New York. So I was very exposed to railroading, and it started with the Staten Island Railroad. And then eventually, when he was a boy, he collected trains, and he had like a 4x8 sheet of plywood, the fake carpet grass. And I still have all of his buildings, Ray, from the 60s. It's in a bin right over here,
Awesome.
in a beautiful condition. Eventually, we'll display that in the future. I was born in '89. It was 90, so I say 1995. So I was like probably 5, 6 years old. That's when Dad and I saw our very first freight train in real life. I mean, you can see stuff from the magazines and the Pentrex videos. Remember the Pentrex videos and VHS tapes? I still have them too.
Yeah.
I still have a VCR. Still works.
Nice.
I still watch them. It brings back a lot of childhood memories. But we saw our first train in Congress, New York, and that was on the Conrail River Line. And I remember that train had Conrail, NS, CSX, Missouri Pacific locomotives, about 6, 7, 8 engines on it going up to Selkirk. And so that was my first taste of railroading and the and just model railroading too. And that collected N scale and he obviously HO scale. And when I was young, I received the drum set and the train set from Santa. So there explains my whole identity with the drum set and the train set.
Yeah, one Christmas set the tone.
That was it, man.
Yeah.
it was way down after that, downhill. No, but I remember we had a 4x8 piece of plywood on top of this TV unit that probably weighed 1,000 pounds with 1,000 pounds of VHS tapes in it. And then we had about 2 loops on brass track, a lot of Tyco, Model Power, Bachmann, Lifelike, some European stuff, some stuff that Dad had from Italy, even Lionel HO, which I still have up on the shelf above me from Dad's collection. We still reran all that stuff, and Mom loved putting the scenery on top of all the buildings. A lot of the snow we put up there, and on top of that layer was a 10,000-pound TV. So we were running trains and watching Christmas Vacation. So that was how I grew up. And with the rail fanning, Dad would bring home Trains magazines and Rail Fan and Railroad. And so he found a lot of the rail fanning spots along the Conrail River line. And so we would go to Valley Cottage, New York, and Congress, New York, where my aunts and uncles lived. And soon after, my mother would join us, or my godfather would join us. My cousin, she will join us, except she came for the candy. So around like milepost 26, we had this deli, and we said we want to go to the candy store. We didn't know mileposts. We didn't know control points were. And I'm a railroader now. I laugh now. We said, let's go to the candy store spot. Let's go to the electrical plant spot, which is like this little transformer tower next to the tracks. But that's how we knew where we were going. And man, that was fun time. Do you remember the warheads? Remember the original warheads? Well, suck your face out, those warheads. And you have that and the Spice Girl lollipops and the glass Snapple bottles. Oh, I love the peach one. But that was our memories. We didn't have a scanner. I tell these youngins, you want to really rail fan? Don't bring a scanner. Just stare at the signals and wait for hours. That's the way we did it.
Yeah.
And so between all that, Dad and I collected HO scale, and we had a hobby store in Staten Island called Island Trains. And the gentleman who owned it was Henry Sr. and then Henry Jr. And also I got to include Steve and Mike, who were great folks helping Dad and I out. And so we would go there. Dad didn't drive at the time, so we would take Staten Island Railroad up to Great Kills train station and walk a mile, 95-degree heat, just to go to the train store for an hour, try to find a little bit of a bargain, and they take the train back. And at the time when Dad wasn't driving, Mom worked in Secaucus, New Jersey. And so she would drop us off in North Bergen Yard on Tunnelly Avenue, which was Conrail's North Bergen Yard at the time. And this was the summer of 1997. Every Friday we went, except for one time, we went to Northlands in New Jersey. And oh man, Ray, you know those days with Conrail, and just saw every class one out there, you know, and that's my first time even seeing a Santa Fe engine. So, you know, we went from there now to Bound Brook, New Jersey. We went to Dover to see the Morristown and Erie, and then all the way up to Bear Mountain, Iona Island. And then eventually I got older. I didn't have a car myself, so I traveled 6-hour round trip on public transportation just to hang out with my friends in Bound Brook, New Jersey and Piscataway to railfan the Conrail Shed assets, and good times. And a lot of those guys that we were friends back in the day, they're now dispatchers from New Jersey Transit. They are engineers from New York, Susquehanna, and Western. It's just awesome. You know, you never know what life's going to bring you. And most of us are railroaders. So, you know, that's how it really started. We started with HO up until my early teenage years.
Well, it's pretty fascinating, you know, that all your friends have become railroaders. You mentioned yourself included, and that early influence, and you know the effort that you put into rail fanning and being able to go out trackside, you know, coming off of Staten Island and still being able to find a way to get out to the trains.
Yeah, and those days they still had the S2 Alcos, so they were the ex Baltimore and Ohio. And the cool part is I found pictures that Dad took in black and white. I go, oh, these are going on the wall, baby. You know, so those are. It's just awesome, you know, just looking back at the, what is it, the E66 Amtrak engines that ran on the Northeast Corridor, you know. So, yeah, it's just, and then I fell in love with photography, and Dad loved filming. Dad is a phenomenal artist, and he was accepted into Disney Animated Studios right before 9/11. And so around 9/11, I think that's when they went to Pixar. So unfortunately wasn't able to pursue, but he was even offered a job in California to work for Rugrats. So the art just, and I think my great uncle in Italy was a marble maker and a sculptor. So I guess all the art in me moved down from my dad's side of the family, and my mom's side of the family, all the musicians. My mother was a phenomenal ballet and tap dancer and jazz tap dancer. So was my aunt. My grandfather was a professional drummer. My great-grandfather had perfect ear, perfect pitch. And he used to tune the baby grand pianos for the New York Philharmonic by ear. That was his job.
Wow.
And he was on the Art Guthrie show live. He was offered a job with the Chicago Symphony. So just all the exposure of art and music and model railroading just became, poof, here I am. Today, 35, just doing all the things with it. It's really cool.
Well, let's say she got some solid genes there when it comes to, you know, the artistic mind. And I'm really fascinated in, you know, with your relationship with your dad and how you were able to share railroading and model railroading. But you also hinted that your mom was a little bit into it too, with the scenery, and shared that with you guys as well. So that's neat that both parents were into this thing that you were really passionate about.
Yeah, she loved N scale. You remember N scale in the 90s, the engines go bzzz, you know, that's all they did, pull two cars with the hooks. The hooks barely worked, they barely derailed. And so Dad would put up this little tiny table layout. And by the time he got the track and the trains on the layout, I would wake up and he's like, oh man, put it away, you know, because it was so tiny for me being a little kid. Yeah. And so we still have some of those pieces. And actually now he's in his early 60s, and he goes, Joey, I want to get back into model railroading. I miss scratch building. I said, well, get back into it. Yeah. I said, so he goes, don't tell your mother, but I want to get this. I want to do that. So he's getting back into it, you know, and it's really cool because we still have that relationship. And, you know how it is with fathers. They provide for the family. And in the my early teenage years, around like 2003, from like middle school to high school, you know, he pretty much got out of the hobby, just what it is, right? Yeah. And I was by myself for a lot of it, just because I loved it. Oh, I didn't want to end it, you know. And I remember at 13 going, all right, I'm going to model Conrail Chicago line from South Bend, Indiana to Elkhart, Indiana, so I can have the Grand Trunk and the Santa Fe and do all the cool things that I saw in my Pentrix videos growing up on Conroe Hotspots West. Don't know a lick of DC. Well, everything was DC at the time. So, but no idea on wiring, no idea how to cut track work or do track work. I'm good with a pen and paper to make a spaghetti bowl. That's what I was good at the time, and nothing staying on the track. It didn't have metal wheels. Everything was hooks. There were no metal couplers. It was like just a step above if you had that, the metal wheels and couplers. Unlike today where it's really common. So I looked at this, I go, how the heck am I going to do this? This is impossible. Now, in the early years, my childhood, we had a 1-bedroom apartment. So everything was in a 1-bedroom apartment, the little drum set from Toys R Us and the little train 4x8 layout. I don't know how the heck we all fit in there, but we did. Yep. So then when my sister was born, we moved into the current house where they're in now, my parents. And we converted the whole garage for the layout. And so we started building that, and we did this and this and this, and nothing worked. And so I remember Dad bringing home, and it was around 2003 because that's when it was a tough time for New York and the world, and he brought home I think it's the O Gauge Railroader magazine, and it was the December issue. It was a Christmas issue, and it had all these beautiful Christmas layouts. And I go, oh, that's gorgeous, and then I said, I do have a Lionel train set. I said, maybe I'll put that up around the tree. That's where it started there. And then all of a sudden we go upstate New York to go rail fanning and, and all the things with my family functions up there. And then there's a beautiful little train shop in Blauvelt, New York, right next to the Conroe River line. The store was called Hudson Shores. And anybody listening probably remembers that store. And that gentleman was a phenomenal store owner and a model railroader. And I remember him introducing this young mother and his little child to this beautiful HO scale steam engine, this Pennsylvania Railroad, probably like an M1A, this massive 10-wheeler, right? And I'm like, ooh, it has smoke and sound and all these things. And I can't afford that. I'm 13. I don't have a job. and so all of a sudden now he introduced this big SD80 Mac, Conroe SD80 Mac, to this mother, and he's like, check this out, and it has smoke, crew talk. The ditch lights work. It it revs up, revs down, all these things. I go, oh, HO scale doesn't have this stuff. Now, mind you, that steam engine was a Broadway Limited Imports. That's when they very first started with the sound in HO scale, and DCC I think was introduced in that time. But then I saw this O scale and this O gauge engine, and the gentleman says that's an MTH Premier line. I go, what is MTH? Interesting. All I know about is Lionel and Williams, and so Dad bought me a VHS tape of the Great Toy Train Layouts of America by Tom McComas, and that changed my life forever when it comes to O gauge. And for 10 years, I collected O gauge, and we built a phenomenal layout. I started with the tubular track and all those things, all the Lionel train sets, the Polar Express, the Hogwarts Express set, the Holiday set, all this stuff, right? And then I learned about Rich Batista and his Black Diamond Railway, and how we brought the high rail into realism, weather track, weather locomotives, beautiful scenery, everything that you see in HO scale and N scale, he put the O gauge and high rail. I go, oh, now that's the way to do it. And so it was through O gauge where I learned to weather. I learned my basic scenery skills, my wiring skills, my track design skills, and even scratch built my first building. It was an O gauge. It was like this little box thing, but I learned how to scratch build, and I would spend hours, and it was always around Christmas time was my favorite time. I mean, that's when model railroading and Lionel, all that came about, right? And it was in those times I'll listen to Delilah from 106.7 Light FM in New York, and I'll work on the layout, to like 11 at night, midnight, family sleeping, and I'm by myself in my little world with the Ionia subdivision, which was a fictional rail line that I modeled based off the Pittsburgh line of Conrail. And I did this in 11 by 17 around the wall O gauge layout, which was a lot of fun. That's when it really hit me for the realism part. And then it just just itched, and I had that layout all the way up until I moved to Nashville, Tennessee.
So you're spending your nights listening to Delilah give questionable relationship advice on the radio,
Cracks me up. Yeah.
and then putting together. I'll tell you, I love going to shows. I can't collect it. I don't have room for it, but O scale is such an amazing scale for the visual.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just so tangible because of the size of it. And when you see those details in that scale, just how, I don't know, just how eye grabbing. It's just
Mm-hmm.
fascinating to see that stuff. And I'd
Right.
love to, if I had 1,000 walls in my house where I could put shelves and just collect that stuff and just put it up there. Cause I don't have the room to run it, but yeah, it's just amazing. And to see like even modern locomotives in O scale, it really is a fascinating scale. And it obviously caught your eye and got your attention.
Absolutely. And I'm still planning on buying an O gauge steam engine. All I had was diesel at the time. And I kept a lot of stuff. Now, my grandma Terry, she, God bless her, she spoiled the heck out of us growing up, all of the grandkids. And that really helped with, and just pursue my modeling career even more, my journey rather, especially in O scale. And it was around, I would say 15 years ago, around 2009, perhaps, maybe earlier, is when I started YouTube. YouTube just came out, and I saw this amazing community of O gauge model railroaders. And this is when Eric's trains, E Seagull 76 first started. JD Stucks, Jason's trains, he first started. He was a little tyke, I'm a few years older than him, but he looked like a kid. And I still message him today because he has like 20,000 followers on YouTube now. And he has a magnificent layout, so it's really cool. We had a little group of folks. We will share our ideas, share our update videos. And that's when I started content creating. And I just love sharing. I love video editing and doing that. I got into photography, and it's been, like I said, it's just been ever since those days. And TOTB Model Weathering was originally Southern Treatment, was my original channel name. I don't know how the heck I got that name, but that's the original name for it. And then until I started Touch of the Brush was 2017. And that's when I revamped the whole YouTube channel. But all my playlists, you'll see my beginning stages of my journey in model railroading with the O gauge all the way up until now. So it's very impressive. That's what I love about YouTube. It's a visual blog of your life, especially when you're doing something like this with model railroading. So yeah, it's just a great time with the O gauge. And then unfortunately that layout came down, and then I built another one in Nashville, Tennessee. And that was called the Adirondack Valley Central. And that was I want to say a 6x9 and a 700 square foot 1-bedroom apartment. So there was no room in the living room. There was just a layout and maybe a TV. So yeah, takes over your life.
So what takes Joey out of Staten Island and brings him to Nashville?
So I have a BA music degree. And at the time while I was in college, I really thought about going into railroading. There was still a passion of mine, the railroad industry. And I had a good friend, Steve Nelson, who told me, he said, hey, why don't you come and volunteer on the Adirondack Scenic Railroad? And so I said, yeah, that'll be great, because at the time I thought I was going to go to Modoc Railroad Academy and spend all this money. And he's like, Joey, you could do the same thing, and it's just volunteer based. And Steve Nelson, he's from Staten Island, and he went to college with me, and so while during that time, my friend Julie Linton, who moved to Nashville, she's a phenomenal singer, and she wanted me to come move out with her right after college, and so I did, because I wanted to pursue a music career. I've been a drummer for 25 years, and I did a lot of stuff in New York City with a lot of musicals. I think I played about 30 musicals in a 10-year span. I did a lot of jazz gigs, a lot of recordings. I have my own rock band, Not From Concentrate, which is still going strong after, I think, 15 years. So I had a lot of experience, at least I thought, and so, but that was enough passion to say, hey, Mom and Dad, 2014, I'm moving to Nashville, Tennessee to pursue a touring career in music. So in 2014, I moved to Nashville, Tennessee. It was like around Memorial Day weekend, and I literally worked retail and went down and networked the heck out of Lower Broadway. and played all the bar scenes, and that leads up to Darius. So so Julie moves back to Staten Island. Steve Nelson, my friend Steve, this is the irony in life. Steve went to work for the Delaware and Lackawanna and Western, and he was a dispatcher, engineer, conductor. He did everything. And then a couple of years later, he moved to Nashville, Tennessee. He's a phenomenal steel guitar player, bass, electric player, and he recently was on the Grand Ole Opry. So we have another Staten Island boy from, who got to be professional. He made it to the Grand Ole Opry, which is really awesome. Yeah, so I went to railroading professionally. He went to music professionally. So we switched places. So I have to say that because Steve's one of my good buddies. So I moved in 2014 to Nashville, Tennessee. And that's, I was trying to make it like everybody else down there. And I had a good friend of mine, Charlie West, who was a great drummer out there. And he worked the Guitar Center at the time. And he said, Joey, go out to the Fiddle and Steel bar down in Printer's Alley. So I said, okay, what's there? He said, there's a great jam. I believe Toby Keith's group was the house band at the time. And prior to that, long ago, was Rascal Flatts. So he said, this was the place to really get noticed. Sure, every Tuesday night, I went to the jam night, and I've hung out with Toby Keith's group. I've met Ricky Rockin from Poison. And we all became like just friends because we just jammed and hung out. And I remember like 3 months into me moving into Nashville, Tennessee, I got on stage and we had this really phenomenal bass player playing with me. It's like, man, this cat can lay it down, man. And I was like, wow, he's good, and we shake each other's hands and we introduced each other. And he's like, well, my name is Darius Chagnon. And I'm like, well, I'm Joey. Nice to meet you. Great bass playing, great drumming, the whole thing, we support each other. And so so a few days later, he messages me on Facebook. He doesn't do social media at all, but he's like, Joey, I tried to find you. It took me forever, but I saw a bunch of photos of model railroading stuff and train stuff and drumming stuff. I said, I have a model railroad that if you're interested, would you like to work with me on it? And I said, well, what model railroad? He said, well, it's the Reading, Wilmington, and Northern 1960s era. I said, sure, HO scale. I know HO scale. I know all about HO scale. At the time, I was still doing no gauge, but I knew everything about HO scale as I thought. And so we worked on this layout every Thursday up until he moved with his wife. So this is about maybe 2-3 years. So, but I remember the very first time I saw the spare room, and I said, "Oh, this is not the DC model power lifelike stuff that I thought of. No, this guy's got DCC. He's got it. This is the first time I learned about an NCE system, and he's got that track is realistic. He goes, yeah, that's code 70. What the heck is code 70? All I know about is code 100. So, and he goes, well, check this out. Look at this. Look at the guy is a phenomenal scratch builder. And he was really modeling the essence of Pennsylvania, and really, really condensed, of course, but really realistically, as much as the prototype, modeling the Wilmington and Northern branch line. Really gorgeous layout. And he said, well, you're great at scenery. Why don't you start the tree work? So we spent about 3 weeks installing all the trees on this mountain ridge. And then he goes and shows me maps and printouts of blueprints. He's like, well, check this out. This is Coatesville, and this is what Coatesville looks like. And if you lay this here, you can see how the track is perfectly aligned to all this and that. And my mind is blown. I'm like, I never knew this is model railroading. I mean, I followed Alan McLennan. I followed Tony Coster. I followed all these folks that a lot of people know, right? But it didn't never dawn on me, like, this is it. Like, this guy knows his stuff. So it was really fun. And then eventually, we'll get to it. He then eventually modeled the Pennsylvania Railroad.
And all from a perchance, go to this bar, hook up with these guys, shake the guy's hand. I mean, how does model railroading come up in that conversation?
God is good, man. That's all I can say. Our friendship was never music. We talked music. I played one gig with him throughout his career in the 6 years I was there in Nashville. but our friendship was through model railroading,
Wow.
and he was very, very private of his personal life. Oh, but what, we had a little world, and that's what we worked on. I learned, we talk about mentorship, right? And so I wanted to learn all about operations. And he said, well, here's these books. Check out these books. They were Lance Meinheim's books. I said,
Yeah.
okay. So I'm on tour, and I'm reading all these books. Folks are listening to music. The guitar player is doing this. He's maybe on Tinder, swiping right or left. And I'm here, I'm reading Lance Meinheim's books. Like,
Yeah.
what's a transload? Oh, that's a
Yeah.
transload.
Yeah.
Or oh, what's that? Just fascinated on that. And I look at my 6x9 foot O scale layer, which is just loops, and and I go, I'm going to change this up. And so I expanded it even further to put 2 switches to work 2 industries. And then eventually I said, no, this can't happen. This can't happen. It's just not working, especially with it's not realistic enough, and then it was around 2017 as well, where I converted back to HO scale. And thanks to Darius and my buddy TJ, they're like, hey, come on, HO scale. DCC is universal now. It's affordable. You can do it. It's one of those things. And I said, I'll give it a try, and never turned back, man. I learned operations. I learned a lot of scenery work. I learned landscaping, planning, designing, simple bench work, simple. And I would say this too, a lot of times, being away from my family in New York, I couldn't go away for a lot of the holidays. And so Darius goes, hey, let's order some pizza, have a few beers, and let's operate the layout. Man, what a lot of fun that was.
Yeah.
I really learned operations and learned what it was like to model, and really not just model, but operate in the 1960s era with those times tables. I learned a lot about Pennsylvania. So yeah, it was really just a lot of fun, Ray.
I think maybe the story that you share here, and we haven't got into the later parts of it, but just the beginnings of it, probably because it hits a familiar tone to me, because I had a mentor kind of the same way, that when I met him, he opened my eyes to model railroading like I'd never seen before. And it sounds like it's exactly the path that you went down, right?
Absolutely. Talk a little bit about Darius. He was an Army Ranger, and he served in North Korea. He was the top of his class. He was like a 3rd-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. Very smart man. He has, I think, a BA in finances and bank and business. Excuse me, business. And when his father was I want to say, a scientist and a professor, and they went to stay at State College, Pennsylvania, while his father went to teach at Penn State. And that's when he found about model railroading, when his mom took him to like this little train club. And then that's when Darius' world opened to the state of Pennsylvania and all the railroading. And then Darius was a very, very successful businessman. And not just, he was, top of the class in everything. In his military experience, all the way to he played French horn as well. And he, as I think 13 years old, played with the symphonic orchestra. I'm trying to remember which states. I want to say in Pennsylvania, at age 13.
Wow.
And anything that he touched, it had to be perfect, Ray. And that's just the way he was. That's a lot of the military experience. That's the way he learned. Like, he went out into the Amazon to help his father write memoirs and a book about certain tribes in the Amazon.
Wow.
When he was a kid. So, he had a passion for writing. He had a passion for art, passion for music, and a passion to be a perfectionist. And so that came with a boatload. Like, right before we started, I was telling you, I have like no sleep, because I have this whole binder full of stuff that I found, blueprints. If it was about chess, he read it. If it was about golfing, he read it. If it was about a certain lock that the Pennsylvania Railroad used on a switch, he had the whole book on it. Like, it was that detailed. And
Yeah.
Seriously, it's insane. The amount of library that I have from this gentleman is unbelievable. And I think he knew that I enjoyed the same thing. I love history. I love research. I love designing. And he saw that in me as well. And I think that's part of the reason his family trusted me with his collection after he passed. But you know, he loved the steel industry. I mean, I have photos of the Bethlehem steel, Youngstown, Ohio steel, all of these things, you know, and it's just it's like I have to do something with it. And so I know Cynthia, I am writing the article. I promise you. But Cynthia Priest asked me to write some stuff about the buildings that are on the Penn-Reading Industrial Division layout. And so I want to incorporate that, but I want to go further, Ray. There's a rabbit hole. He loves the steel industry. I never thought about the steel industry. He has all the kits, all the models, and that's going to be in the future because that was part of his research, and I became fascinated through him, just reading all this stuff. So we're talking about mentoring. He did mentor me here on this earth, but he's also still mentoring. Amy just said it earlier. He's mentoring me now as well.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things, so much research still out there that I'm finding. I mean, you know, he has an article in Layout Design Journal on his fictional layout called the Chicago Beltline. And then he was also the industrial portrayal editor for Layout Design Journal. And so he was part of the OPSIG from the NMRA. Mark Crawls, I want to think, was the gentleman. I have all the correspondence from all over the place. He even lived he traveled, you know, for business as well. So every time he lived somewhere, he was fascinated. He lived in Rogers, Arkansas, not far from here. He was fascinated with the Frisco. He lived in Chicago for a little bit. He was fascinated with the Illinois Central. You know, he lived in Washington. He was fascinated with the Northern Pacific and the Burlington Northern. He was, I think, born and raised in California. He was fascinated with the Santa Fe. And then when he studied in Pennsylvania, he became passionate about the steel mills as well as the Pennsylvania Railroad and the Reading Company. So, you know, I mean, his mentors like Doug Gurin, Dean Freytag, I want to say is correct. David R. Clemens was another. I mean, he was part of the Frisco Modelers Information Group.
Wow.
You know, like this all the stuff I found recently, you know, he studied everything. And me wanting to learn about the sand patch. He got like 6 books on the sand patch, man. You know, so that was, and he said, read, because I grew up in the age of YouTube and videos and books, not books, videos and DVDs until I was able to be entrusted. And like, now I'm reading tons of stuff. Like he was subscribed to the Keystone, which is the Pennsylvania Railroad's Technical Historical Society. And so I learned a lot about him. Through him about a lot of stuff on the Pennsylvania Railroad. And so I got a bunch of Post-its everywhere in all these books from stuff that could be informative to help others learn. So that's the way I see it. And he helped me. I'm going to help others.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, what a worldly guy, you know, and beyond model railroading and railroading in general, but certainly within model railroading and railroading. And what a blessing to have him in your life to be able to share this. How much time did you get to spend with him?
I would say 8 years. We were friends for 8 years. And for 6 years, I lived in Nashville, and then I moved here to Arkansas, and we still remain friends. You know, it's funny. When I started my weathering business, Touch with the Brush Model Weathering, it was back in 2017 in Nashville, Tennessee. And he was one of my first clients. He's like, I want to help you build this up. This is really cool. And then I had a lot of friends out in Alabama and Tennessee and Missouri, Mississippi that said, hey, yeah, we'll like to support you and try to get you up and going. And I remember the rise in my ear still to this day. This could be bigger than just weathering. You can make this a manufacturing company. I said, that's true. I have no idea what I'm doing, but it's a possibility, you know, when it comes to that part. But he's right. It could be anything. And, you know, he said, never limit yourself.
What an amazing thing in life when you get somebody who sees more in you than you see in yourself. And is able to really ignite that passion in you. And it sounds like Darius was that guy for you.
Absolutely. You know, he taught me a lot of things. You know, he was just a great mentor with a lot of life experience. And I remember, I'll say this. I mean, let's say there were times where I was strapped for cash. I never would ask him for anything, but you know, he somehow knew, and he would say, "Hey, Joey, I got 35 Broadway limited steam engines I need weathering. Here's a down payment."
Wow.
Like, it's just, you know, it's like somehow he knew, you know. And so we started weathering a lot of his equipment before he passed away. And at the time, those 6 years, we 6 years. Yeah, I would say about 5 years. We worked on that Reading company, that Reading, Wilmington, and Northern layout. And then after that, he when he met his wife Lisa, they moved in and he built this um, separate building, and the bottom level was his massive triple deck Pennsylvania Railroad Allegheny secondary, and then above that was his music studio.
Wow.
And I never got a chance to really work on the layout. I mean, I helped him with backdrops. That's it. Because then I moved to Arkansas, and man, I would, and it kills me inside that I wasn't able to go out there often. And I work for a railroad out here, so
Yeah.
just that's just life.
Right.
But we kept in contact every single day. And I remember him going, man, I miss you. I miss you. You need to come back and operate this layout with me. It's not the same as doing it by myself. He had triple decker. I think the helix, man, was like 10 feet tall, and it was massive. Unfortunately, I don't have that many photos, but I do have a video on my YouTube channel of the layout. It's just incredible. And he told me, George, this is going to be my last layout. I know it is. It's going to be my last layout. And unfortunately, it was. And he passed away in August 24th, 2022.
Yeah. So
Devastating.
I told you earlier that our stories parallel each other about mentorship.
Mhm.
And sadly, they also parallel in the fact that you've lost your mentor and I've lost mine. And, I can't say I know how you felt, but I can relate to losing a mentor and how I felt. And you can really go one of two ways with it, right? You could either run away from the hobby and say, I've lost this special connection into the hobby and kind of put it on the shelf, maybe, go back to the drums, or for me, move on from model railroading. But I didn't, and neither did you. And,
No.
and, you actually took it a little further in being able to take Darius's passion that he instilled in you and all the things that he was able to provide you, the spark to drive you forward in the hobby and keep going with it. And that includes inheriting his railroad, right?
I remember his cousin telling me the day of his celebration of life, saying, Joey, this layout's now yours. And that was rough. That was rough. I'm like, I never had a layout this massive, and I had it probably for like 12 hours. I had only like a few hours to take everything I can. I couldn't even take the layout. It was impossible. He liquid nailed everything to the boards. He this is my, like he says, permanent layout. And so it's unfortunate I wasn't able to save the layout, but I was able to save just about his entire collection. He didn't throw anything out. So I have everything from the 1940s era all the way till the 90s. Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Stuff that had boxes of stuff he never even opened from Tangent, from AccuRail, and you feel guilty in a way, I felt guilty. I remember coming back with a U-Haul full of stuff, and my buddy Johnny and Joe, they came over to help me. Now, mind you, I had a 1-bedroom place in Arkansas, and I had a 40 by 60 layout of stuff in a 1-bedroom apartment. I don't know how the heck I did it. I have a photo of the stacks of skyscrapers of boxes. It's really comical looking at it, but I broke down that day. That was tough, man.
I can imagine.
It's like he imagined like all now, and a lot of folks don't know that right before he passed, and I told him, I said, I'm going into N scale. I told him I was converting to N scale, and I'm thanking the Lord I never did. Because this opened up so many doors. When I first met him, he was like a lone wolf in the hobby. He was doing it by himself. And I remember him telling me that he said something along the lines like, he was tired of the criticism from others. I mean, you get trolls. We get all that stuff. It's just the way life is, man. Not everybody's going to be satisfied and happy. That's just what it is. And a lot of it could be jealousy. It could be just trying to get under your skin. Who knows? Let them go bye-bye. Don't worry about those folks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he told me he found a spark in model railroading when he met me to do it again, which is wonderful. I could say, like you said, gave me a spark when he passed to really pursue something that I never thought in my entire life I would do. I mean, I still felt like the little kid with the little DC model power and lifelike trains. And now here I am with 30, like maybe 15 to 20 Broadway limited steam engines,
Yeah.
and that all weathered for him. And I wanted to donate a lot, as much as I could. I gave some to friends who were close friends of mine, model railroaders, gifts to like you, to like Andy Dorsch and Mike Oshatek, to Ken Patterson. Everybody in that group got something. Mike, and I would say this, during the NMRA convention last year in 2023, he passed August 24th. That was the day of me going there for the first time to the NMRA convention, was August 24th, a year after his death. And that was the day I gave a whole box to Michelle Kepema. And so she gladly took it for the Colorado Model Railroad Museum. And it's now trusted by a gentleman who models the Pennsylvania Railroad. And so she did a nice presentation, a video presentation of the train running on the museum layout, which is awesome. I mean, I think me and my buddy Johnny both cried, watching that. That was cool, And then, but through that, I met my friend Johnny, who lives down the ways from me. He's a model railroader, and being a railroader, I work for the Arkansas Missouri Railroad, and a lot of us guys are model railroaders, and we're foamers. We're railroaders. We're going to say foamers. I mean, come on, we're nerds like that, And then from there,
in a good way, yeah,
absolutely in a good way. And I promised Rice's family that I would keep his memory alive. I would do something, and that's how the Penn-Reading Industrial Division was born. The name Penn-Reading is both the railroads. He modeled the Pennsylvania Railroad and the Reading. And I want to do something that combined both, just like the Penn-Reading seashore lines. And so the industrial name, he loved industry. I love industry. And so the fictional railroad, the backstory is it's a bridge line that operates from Philadelphia to Reading, Pennsylvania, and then eventually connects to Allentown, and then trackage rides from Allentown to Bethlehem Steel on the Lehigh Valley. And so it served it brought product to the Penn-Reading seashore lines, to the Pennsylvania Railroad, to the Reading, and to all the different railroads up in Allentown at the time. And so the whole industrial name was just a love of us loving industry and operating industry. And the division I would say, like all the cities that combine and to make a division. And so that's how the fictional name came to be. And so I develop the backstory, and it became a fictional railroad. And Amy is a phenomenal graphic designer. She did a lot of work with creating the logo. And so now we have a logo, we have the decals. We're, building a fictional empire and a fictional railroad that serves the state of Pennsylvania, in which goes from the Rice's research and research I've learned. And we're going to continue going forward from the steam era, which we're doing now, the 1940s into the 50s, and eventually go to the 1960s, which will be pursuing more research and memory of the Rice in a lot of ways, like including the automotive industry and including the steel industry rather. He has all those kits. And I just built a 29-car Davies gondola train, like a bunch of roundhouse kits, and I don't like unit trains. I never liked unit trains. That's my first unit train. That was his, part of his dream was to build a steel mill. And so we want to incorporate that. But through the research, Ray, it's now became more of, I want to teach folks about history. I want to share like he shared. I want to bring folks in who are model railroaders, who are children, and say, hey, this is the United States industrial history here. We're not just doing model trains and going, yay, we're trains. We're actually learning history, bringing the nostalgia back, and learning history. Like, I'm not afraid to even put, all the different events, that were happening in the 60s between civil rights and just like Watergate, all the going to the moon, so like we're going to combine all this stuff on a future layout, that would represent real history and a study of United States history, and with all the research from Darius. And that would be the plan. And the beautiful thing with this current layout, and it's just a 6x14 with 3 loops. And the main reason for the layout was that folks could come over in my area to run trains. And a lot of the railroaders that I work with, these are train masters, engineers, and conductors. They have model trains too, and they have no place to run them. And so they come here. And so the goal of the layout has been accomplished. was to bring people together, because that's what I love. That's what Darius love. That's what we all love. We want to bring people together. And through just hanging out, we created the Boston Mountain Model Railroad Association, which is now our train club here in Northwest Arkansas. And through all the stuff that I got from Darius, it came to, meeting Curtis from Broadway Limited, became good friends with him, to Ken Patterson, to Gordy doing NMRA X clinics. It's just it doesn't end, and I don't want it to end. It's great. And these, like I said, lifelong friendships that I see in the future. Meeting you finally was another one. And so, if this layout, the model railroad brought Darius and I together, this layout now brought all of us together.
You got a couple things here I want to unpack and just touch upon. And
sure,
you mentioned history of in model railroading. I mean, obviously, railroading is a major part of the history of our country, and what a great tool. And I've mentioned this to if clubs are looking for more opportunities, and even personal layouts can be doing the same. But I think club atmosphere for this. What a great tool to work with historical society in your area and use model railroading to teach history. We can recreate in a visual way how these areas were at that time, that like no other. And it moves and it interacts and you can see it. And it's such a great tool that I think is missed in history. It's really cool that you've acknowledged that and you're aware and you're actually doing something with that. I think that's really a cool idea. What also is neat to me, and going back to your relationship with Darius and inheriting this railroad, you could have easily just picked up where he left off and just continued down his path, but you found a way to make it your guy's path, where it's some of his, but it's still your passion, and you find where your passion exists within it. You're making it your own with a nod to him and some inclusion of what he was doing. But I think that's the right way to go about it. Otherwise, because you're not trying to live out his passion, you're living out your passion that he helped ignite and including it in it. So you've done a really nice job of doing that. I think that's phenomenal.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and that's what it is. The whole layout is a memory of someone. I modeled the one town approach. I love the one town approach, and the whole layout's just, it's a good enough approach, because you start with. You start with just doing a basic scenery that looks like something, right? And then I wanted to do operations. I'm like, well, I'm running loops. This is cool, but I want somehow incorporate operations, and that's when the actual backstory of the fictional railroad came about. So with the beauty of this layout for me is that not only you can run trains in loops and just run your collection, but you can also operate. And so we thought of operating session. I learned waybills and car cards from Darius. I have all that stuff too. And so I learned how to use the waybills, the car cards, and how to learn how to create a cassette to bring trains on and off the layout, and also utilize the one town approach. And that is the fictional town of Emma, Pennsylvania. And Emma is named after my great-grandmother that I never met on my mother's side. And that's my mother's middle name. So that's the name of the town, is Emma, Pennsylvania. And then so there's a lot of places like Hummel's Cut is after my friend Michelle Hummel, who passed away from cancer last year. Yeah, it was last year. And she loved railroading too. And so every time we toured in Pennsylvania, out in Harrisburg or Grantville, Pennsylvania, we would go out to Horseshoe Curve. We will go to Scranton, Strasburg, all these different places, the rail fan, and that was on a bucket list before she passed away. And so we have Hummel's Cut. You also have an industry called Hummel and Sons Furniture. And that's named after, she loved antique furniture. So that's one industry. Then you also have Sajecki Wine and Spirits, which is my grandmother's last name. And you also have, and we're Polish, so we like to drink a little bit here and there, So so we have that, and Terry's Produce is named after my grandma Terry. That's a produce plant there. We have Frank's Farm Co-op. That's my father's name's Frank, and so he likes homesteading, and he even has chickens in New York City. So so there's an industry for him, and then you have Vine Street, which is the other side of the layout, and that's Vine Street Yard. I love jazz, and so I love this song by Benny Carter called Vine Street Rumble, and so I named it Vine Street for that. But also there is D. Chagnon Locomotive Facility. So the roundhouse and the turntable and the whole facility is named after Darius. And so that was a tribute to him. And also we have on the other side, Durbin Grove, which is my friend David Durbin, who passed away last year from cancer as well. And so the whole scenic section, which has the waterfall and it has a little train station, a little diorama base, that's named after David. It's a little peaceful place, to be. And Maribeth, his wife, came the last time we had an open house, and she got to see that in person. It was really nice to, and so the whole lash is a tribute to in memory of folks, and then now the next chapter, what we're going to do for the future is we're not going to close it necessarily. It's just the next chapter, in the same book, but a different one. We're going to move forward, and do other things that are going to increase our skills. Like I'm the area director for Maple Leaf here in, which includes Northwest Arkansas and Carthage, New Jersey, Carthage, Missouri, Southeast Kansas, Northeast Oklahoma. And this past February, the torch was passed on to me. And so, and this is the NMRA area director. I said area director, but, it's kind of important to say NMRA. So, next year is going to be concentrating a lot on bringing more folks together, a lot of modelers together. We're finding folks all over this place, Northwest Arkansas, man. And anybody's listening to this, come hang out. We have like once a month, all my buddies will come and we'll have an open house and people get to run their trains. And so we do that.
Great.
So next year, we're going to concentrate on that, concentrate on, like you said, honing your skills. I'm going to do the same thing with Amy and I are going to concentrate more on that. And really, really work on scratch building, learning how to scratch build, because my girlfriend Amy is a model railroader too. And so she's learning, she loves it. And it's, and it's great to do something like that together. And, and we talk about my parents when they did stuff together. I always encourage the family to participate together in this, just like a board game, build stuff together, just be part of each other's company. And that's the beauty of this hobby, is the sharing. Just do it. It's so much fun when you do it all together.
Well, it's amazing. You talk about, carrying on Darius's railroad and incorporating it into your own and doing all these things, and a layout full of not only, a few Easter eggs, but also all these tributes that you've included. Mm-hmm. But I think the biggest piece that you're doing to carry Darius's legacy forward is continuing that pattern of mentorship and bringing people together. And it proves a point. And you said earlier in the podcast, and it was enough for me to remember, jot it down. You said that Darius lifted you up, but in turn, that wind under the wing that he took you was what was lifting him as well.
Absolutely.
So, and I think that if people understand that, the power of mentorship, that you lift together, and it makes you a better modeler. It makes the person you're mentoring a better modeler, and you rise together. And it's just such a powerful thing. And it's what keeps our hobby going. It's what keeps you personally going. And it is better to give than it is to receive. It's true in many aspects of life, and including in model railroading. The more that you give, the more you get. And, I'm just so impressed by your ability to take a tragic situation like losing your friend suddenly, but yet have it continue to propel you through the hobby and continue to take on more challenges. And then also in that, get more people involved and unite more people in model railroading. So kudos to you for all of that.
That's what it's all about to me. And that's somebody, when we go to these the train shows, all these events and occasions, or we just virtually chat online, I say, hey fam, because it is a family. We need to be a family. Right. It's not perfect, but you know what? It makes this community, and the only way we can continue the model railroading hobby is encourage the younger generations, get them involved, and keep pursuing, because there should be no end to this hobby until the end of times.
Absolutely. So, Joey, you've got a lot going on. You've between the involvement in the NMRA, and of course, you mentioned Touch of the Brush model weathering, your side business that you've got going has been going for quite some time. And tell us a little bit about what you got going on there and some of the projects you've been taking on.
Oh boy, I have one that's been like sitting for 2 years, and I told the gentleman, "Hey, it's on me," because I've been so busy with the railroad that I haven't really got a chance. I've been painting a lot of currently learn. Well, here's the thing. I was talking a little bit about the beginning. Being in Nashville, and being a touring drummer, it could be tough financially at times, and I was looking for a way to pay for my hobby, and so that was the eureka moment for me, going, hey, maybe I could start something like this. The Touch of the Brush name, my dad had a painting business for a few years. It was called Touch of the Brush Faux Finishing. And so when he ended that to work for the city, I asked him, say, hey, can I take that name? It's like, it's not copyrighted, just take it. Heck yeah. So,
Yeah.
So I took it in 2017. I started helping friends. Daraj was one of my first customers, like I said earlier, and I remember one day going on YouTube, and I found out about the YouTube model builders, which was YouTube Live, and YouTube Live. I think Model Railroading Live, what it used to be, and that included Ralph Renzetti, Lionel Strang was on that night from a Models Live podcast, Andy Crawford, Tim Wayman, and I want to say Jason Volk, and if I'm missing Marty Jenkins. That's when I first Marty. He's a drummer too. So we got off, and I met all these guys in one night, and then it was like like a couple months later, Lionel Strang goes, "Hey, you want to be interviewed? You're a drummer and you do model trains. That's pretty cool." So that was my first time ever being interviewed. I mean, just in one night, this all happened. And Ralph Renzetti, as he known as the Mud Father, he was my mentor in weathering, and he still does. Like I'll have like I'll show folks something. They go, "Oh, that's gorgeous. That's awesome. That's this." He goes, "Why did you use that kind of paint? Why does the strokes look like that? Why?" That's a mentor, man.
Yeah.
A mentor is not going to go, "Great job," and then go away. He's going to critique you to become better. He yelled at me for years to go, "Hey, you got to go with oil paints." And so I finally started oil painting, and he saw that one car. He's like, "Bravo, about time," And so anyway, so 2017 that started, and then I revamped my YouTube channel for Touch of the Brush, and it transformed from just doing like how-to weathering into layout tours and interviewing layout owners and modelers, through model railroading live. I was able to virtually chat with Speed Muller, Marty Jenkins, Gordy Robinson, and they go, "Hey, why don't you do an NMRAX clinic?" And this is during COVID. They're like, "Let's do an NMRA clinic for NMRAX." And I was like, "Man, absolutely." Here I am doing my first workshop, and it's virtual. And just from there, I'll tell you, when money was tight, that business really helped me big time. There was back in 2019, I almost died. I had an infection in my foot,
Holy
and
moly.
thank goodness they caught it in time, man.
Yeah.
And so, I was out of work for a few months, and I had to support the family I had at the time, and support me. And so that business really helped me get through. And so, it was a blessing, absolutely, just absolute blessing. But through that business, I learned weathering, I learned simple business, and I've learned painting, I've learned decaling, and I've learned how to put details on locomotives. And like I was saying earlier, I have a project that's on me for somebody, because just been busy with working 6 days a week. I'm like, I am sorry, and I don't try to be a perfectionist, but the product needs to come out right. And I was learning new paints. I'm learning like True Color paints. That's a whole new thing for me. So I've been learning how to use that correctly. Certain striping with decaling, I'm horrible at it, but I'm learning through this project. And so, like I said, like it went from just doing stuff for folks to being a content creating avenue to meeting everybody. I mean, everybody, so from doing the NMRAX clinics, that's when I went down and I met with Speed Moeller and Chris Atkins and Dean Ferris with doing operating. And I'm doing this stuff like 2-3 years. And Gordy goes, are you going to become an NMRA member or not? I've been doing all this stuff at NMRA, but not a member. So I'm like, okay. And at the time, I was going through a separation and divorce. So I was broke, and I remember Gordy messaging me. He says, here's half the dues. Please become a member. We need you us. We need young guys. We need to keep this alive. And so I said, sure. And so I became a member, I think in 2021 or 2022. So I'm a fairly new member. But it's been highballing ever since. And so this is 7 years I've been having touch of the brush, and so it's just, it's been keeping me busy, and between the content creating and then, doing all the painting and weathering for folks, and then obviously working on a real railroad, it's just, it keeps you busy, and it's in my blood, man, I guess, just like music is, because I don't see an end to it. I don't want it to end. I'm having too much fun.
Yeah, it sure shows. And your passion for the hobby and everything that's associated with it shines through. And it's been really amazing to have you here on the podcast, to have you share that story. And we're going to have to get you back, and we'll get some more out of you. Maybe we'll talk some more about weathering and some of the things you've learned. We have a bunch of images and a track plan and links and everything else that we'll share on our website, aroundthelayout.com/129. Joey, thank you so much for coming on Around the Layout.
It's absolutely an honor, Ray. Thank you so much for sharing the Rider's story, our stories, and continue sharing the hobby, brother. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Around the Layout. Learn more about today's episode, check out past shows, and much more on our website, aroundthelayout.com. Show your support by becoming an operating crew member at aroundthelayout.com/crew. Follow us on social media, aroundthelayout.com/social. And send us your feedback, aroundthelayout@gmail.com. Thanks for hanging out with us around the layout.